On part 2 of 2, we chat with Ilya Smirnoff from Childline Thailand about their work helping neglected or abused children on the streets of Bangkok.
So if you've ever wondered how these networks operate and what you can do to help, you'll learn a lot from this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 to get away from the scourge of straight sidewalks, majestic vistas, and all the free socialist medicine you can shake a beaver tail at.
Yeah, as long as you wait in line.
That's right.
And I met Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 23 years ago, fell in love with battling with the Thai bureaucracy for months and maybe even years, and eventually winning a sweet, sweet victory. So I never left.
Well, they say that revenge is a dish best served cold, but I guess it's also victory.
It is. I live for these battles now. That's the state of my life.
Nice. Maybe get you a trophy or something.
We want to give a big thank you to one of our patrons, Eric Anderson, who supports us at the show shout-out level. Stick around after we're done talking to our friend Ilya from Childline Thailand to hear why, after chatting with Eric for a few minutes, Greg came to believe that Scottish is not English.
That's right.
We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads-up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. Plus, I've started to upload some video for patrons only. So if you check Patreon patrons out there, there is a video of Greg and I exploring Talat Noi during the J Festival. So check it out.
Nice.
But best of all, patrons like Eric also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about some photoshopped photos of what Tesla's Cybertruck would look like if it were adapted for use in Thailand. More of my adventures with bureaucracy and how I may have figured out a way to come out on top this time. And thoughts on a YouTube video from someone who lives in the provinces, giving an honest take on how boring it can be to be out in the countryside. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
That's right. And before we get into it, we think it's appropriate to take a quick moment and note some pretty sad news, actually. Back in Season 4, Episode 34, we were lucky enough to have on the show a guest as a spokesman from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Kunnatapanu, and he gave us a very good insight into what his job entailed during COVID and everything like that. But sadly, he recently passed away, which I found out from reading news online. And I just want to say, I think that Thailand was very lucky to have him as a spokesman when he was doing his job. It's a very hard job to do. And he was honest, he was accessible, and he was the perfect person for that role. So just a short little shout out from me and Ed here to Kunnatapanu. And
condolences to his family.
Yeah, indeed. He was a great guest, and he will be missed. So, alrighty then. Well, this episode is part 2 of 2 with our friend Ilya Smirnoff. Now, for the past 18 years, Ilya has been the executive director of Childline Thailand, an extremely important organization that advocates for children's rights and works to keep children safe by providing them trusted and reliable access to protection, health, and human services. Now, we got to talking about this topic after we got a few emails from listeners asking about the beggars that they see on Bangkok streets. Are they freelancers? Are they part of a network? Are the kids with women really their children? And we didn't know, so Ilya was kind enough to join us and give us the details. Now, keep in mind this interview was recorded before the recent news about Chinese beggars being rounded up by police, but that does highlight what a profitable and predatory practice begging in Thailand can be. So to tell us more about an upsetting reality of life in Bangkok that many of us don't see or choose not to see, here is my conversation with Ilya Smirnoff. Before we started recording today, you were talking about the timeline of a child.
Yeah.
And explain a little bit about what that is and why it's important.
Well, timeline of the child, as we outlined, we have like a little poster. Anyone who is interested can go to our website. We have it in English and in Thai. Basically, outlines the main ages of where certain things need to happen to a child, or should happen, or can happen, and that the adults and children should be aware of it.
And you say that that should happen, like in order for what? In order for a child to have a healthy, constructive youth?
Yeah, so that there is no problems in the future, or that so that they are aware that beyond certain age there could be some problems.
Right. What are some of the timelines?
So you start at 0, right? So usually people say, what happens at 0? Oh, birth registration. But in Thailand, you have household registration, which are two different registration systems. So any kid in Thailand need both, so that's one thing to look out for. At 3, they have a right to go to kindergarten. It's not compulsory, but everyone who wants to should have access.
Mm-hmm.
At 6 or 7, depending on which month of the year they were born, the child has to enroll into compulsory education system. Then you have 12. So at 12 is a big thing. Now you're criminally responsible for your actions.
Interesting.
So a lot of parents should probably have a conversation with their kids when they turn in 12. Yeah, it's all fun and this, and man, you're a teenager now. But what about, you're living in a country where criminal responsibility for criminal actions is quite low.
Mm.
Before that, it was 10. Before that, it was 7. So we keep pushing, and hopefully we can push it at the end to at least 14, which is the acknowledged international standard. But for now, it's at 12.
Okay.
Then you have the 15, age of consent. With the age of consent comes the completion of compulsory education, which is the level 9 or MOSAM in Thai schools. And you can now be employed in certain safe environments and with the certain conditions that comply with the Labor Protection Act. And you can also enroll into informal education if you haven't completed your compulsory education.
Right. Okay.
So age of consent is a big, Thailand is always like, there is this, but there is that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So yes, age of consent is 15, but you are still a minor. So if you have sex with your intimate partner, you have to make sure that you have your parental consent as well.
Jeez, that's a difficult conversation to have.
Well, that's why, sometimes kids say, oh, I'm 15, now we can, have sex and everything. I'm like, yes, but, make sure that your parents are aware of that. And the parents of your significant other are also aware of that. Because since you are a minor, and if you have sex with a minor, doesn't matter whether you're a minor yourself, you will be liable for the clause of separation of the minor, or prak puyao, in Thai law. However, the injured party will not be you, it will be your parents. So your parents will sue your significant other.
Yikes.
And their parents will sue you. And then you will all end up in court. And,
That sounds like a mess.
Yes, it is.
I think that should be the international slogan for being a parent. Yes, but.
Yeah. So then you have the 17. 17 is the age where you can officially marry, but you still need consent of your parents.
Because you're a minor.
Yes. Well, at 18, you attain majority. Now you can vote boys or any male, anyone who was born male, have to register for compulsory military service as well. Failure to do so is a criminally liable offense. So you don't have to go to the army, but you need to be registered in the system. So, and failure to comply with that will carry certain, negative effects. So at 18, you also can marry, but you still need consent of your parents, because marriage is considered to be independent legal action. And you can only do that when you are 20.
Really?
So yes, you can vote, but you cannot marry without parental consent. You cannot buy a motorbike. Parents still have to sign until you're 20. You cannot buy a car. You can't buy a condo. You can't buy anything without their consent. Yeah. So at 20, you get full rights for independent legal action, and you also now able to purchase nicotine products and alcohol.
Right. Probably what most people are working towards. It's like the final goal.
The funny thing is, in Thailand, the kids don't have issues with purchasing either of
Yeah.
those, much younger.
I thought it was so funny when they sort of legalized weed. Like overnight, there was this national distribution network already in place. It's just under the surface.
Well, I don't know how other people experience it, but for me, I've been in Thailand for a long time.
27 years, you said?
That's right. Yeah, since 1996. For me, from what I see, if you look at it, those who smoked before the legalization, they keep smoking. Those who didn't, they still don't.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't really see that much difference in the local use. There is definitely some tourist use, which is they were using it anyway.
Yeah, right.
So I don't really see that much difference. There is a slight problem with edibles, because when people are high and leave edibles around children, that's dangerous.
Sure.
And
gummy bears.
Yeah, or brownies or whatever. And there were quite a few kids that consumed them unknowingly, just by parents leaving. But that's with any kind of substance, I guess you're on the risk of that. And parents should be very, very careful, if you are into consuming some of those illegal or the legal intoxicating substances, let's say.
Yeah.
Whether legal or illegal, make sure that children don't have reach of those.
Sure. So the timeline of a child then is very important, because if you see someone who's 8 years old and they're not in school, then you can say, hey,
educational neglect.
Yes, right. And does that carry with it any legal weight, or is that just
Yes. In fact, failure to comply might result in removing the child from a family.
But it's complicated, though, isn't it? Like removing a child from a family, that doesn't sound like a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
It depends on a million other factors, but
it's not a good thing, and it should be the last resort anywhere. Because whatever your parents do to you, you still love them. Unfortunately, that's the kid's perspective, and kids have that Winnie the Pooh kind of thinking. Everything is about them. There's some buzzing, must be the bees. And if you're a bee, why would you be a bee if you don't make honey? And why do you not make honey if not for me to eat it? That works in a negative way as well. So when parents are abusive or neglectful towards their children do not stop loving their parents. They start hating themselves. They think they are not enough for parents to care. They are not enough for parents not to abuse them.
That's rough. Do you work with parents at all too? Is there any kind of education programs or even like criminal proceedings that have gone on? Like, how do you work to help fix, or I'm not sure you can fix these situations, but do you work with parents to
10% of what we get about 90% of the kids calling us, but the other 10% mostly parents and sometimes teachers. Yeah.
What do they say?
They have problems with their kids. They don't know how to talk to them. They would like our help with certain things.
Wow. Wow. That must be sort of cathartic, desperate. It must also be a relief if you are able to offer them help.
Yeah, but usually, if you look at what is the root cause of any kind of problem or any kind of issue, is the communication. I've seen families being exposed to horrendous circumstances, but through trust, warmth, and communication, they're able to go through all that and not even end up in a bad shape.
Interesting.
And I've seen some little hiccups just, make huge cracks in the family fabric when there is no communication.
Right. How does the migrant community fit into this situation? The terrible things happening in Myanmar, a lot of Laotians, Cambodians come across the border. How do they fit into this whole thing? Is there lots of exploitation there? Is there more exploitation there? How do those communities come into Thailand?
There is more, definitely, because they're more vulnerable. Any vulnerability will bring up an exploitation opportunity. Yeah, so they're definitely more exploited by various. Not all of them, obviously, but yes, they're more vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah.
And with the Myanmar conflict right now, there is a lot of unaccompanied children that come across the border as well,
Right.
So they don't even have social network to rely on for their survival.
You were telling me the story of someone who walked from Cambodia.
Well, not walk, but travel by themselves.
Okay,
Yeah,
travel.
8 years old. Yeah, he was traveling on the trains. Under the trains, the old type of carriages have this toolbox. You can just stow away there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was say even probably I could fit in it.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, very uncomfortable. But a small kid, it's quite comfortable. And then, so whenever there is a check or anything, you just hide in that toolbox. And when there is there is no checks usually from Aranya Pratet to all the way here, so you can just travel in a normal carriage, just find an empty seat.
So he came from Cambodia to Bangkok.
Yes,
to find you.
Yeah, from Battambang, and then we had to repatriate him twice.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that must be rough. You want to help him, but repatriate him back to the situation that he just escaped from.
There is no good solution sometimes, So you just assess where is the least risk,
Yeah.
Because on his own it was a liability, just waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, that's no environment for a kid to grow up in.
He came first time looking for his parents. His parents basically left for Thailand and never came back. So he just thought, he'll just come to Bangkok and find them. And obviously, it's not as easy as his, little township in Cambodia. So he realized that and then sort of went back and I guess, didn't work out. But eventually he stayed back home, Yeah. So, sometimes it takes some time to come to terms with your life.
As we're wrapping up here, talk a little bit about your company. How many people work there and what kinds of programs are keeping you most busy right now and what are you working on?
Well, our strategy is threefold. We listen to kids, we respond to their concerns, and we try to amplify their voices to bring them to the policymakers or to the society to understand a bit better what's happening. Our structure is also threefold. We have the contact center, which handles all the calls and all the chat text-based communications. We have the walk-in center next to the train station, where kids can just walk in, have a shower, go to the toilet, have a change of clothes.
Next to Hualampong.
Yep. We still haven't moved, even though Hualampong is closing, because the kids haven't moved yet. The new station is not kids friendly.
To be honest, I don't think it's anyone friendly, but
yeah,
that's a different topic.
Yeah. So and then we have the third unit, which is the communication unit, which handles the advocacy and the amplification of the children's voices and runs all our social media channels. I have 27 people working for me, but we are 24/7, 365. So we need extra people more than some other NGOs. And probably around 15, 20 volunteers. So, yeah. So
right.
Together about, 40, 50 people or so.
Right. And I haven't seen it, but I'm told that you're quite well known in Thai media because you're very vocal about these kinds of things.
I kind of sort of unintentionally became a poster boy for the anti-corporal punishment campaign, because I was invited on this program on TPBS policy by citizens, and I proposed the amendment to the Civil and Commercial Code, which allows parents to hit their children.
Mm.
So I proposed that amendment, and sort of we had a rather heated debate with a few lawyers and few representatives, and there were some clips cut out of it, and somebody posted them on TikTok, not myself, and then one of them went kind of viral.
Geez.
So I sort of unintentionally became sort of.
Are attitudes changing now? I mean, you see, probably the most commonly read about incidents are in schools. Cutting hair forcibly, getting beaten forcibly, or even on the terrible end of the spectrum, rapes that go unreported or assaults that go unreported just to keep things quiet, give you some money to go away kind of thing. Are attitudes changing in those regards? Or like is abuse of children becoming more of a serious thing? People taking it more seriously?
Yes, it's slowly becoming, because more and more people realize, that the social fabric needs to improve. It has to be a zero tolerance towards violence. Otherwise, none of us will be, able to live prosperously or hope for any prosperity in the future. If you look at the human rights net framework from its beginning, it's really only for one purpose: to maintain peace. Human rights network comes from framework comes from United Nations. United Nations were 50 nations that came together, and the only thing they could agree is just they all want to live in peace. Some of those nations didn't have voting rights for women. Australia, you could kill an Aboriginal man if they trespass on your property, and you wouldn't be charged. All this stuff. We've come a long way during the last 75 years since the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and there is still a big ways to go, but there is definitely a progress. And Thailand is no exception. So yeah, definitely.
Good. That's good. Well, you're doing really good work. It's funny. I was just the other day, I was talking to my son. I forget how this came up, but I was telling him about that amazing movie from, 10, 12 years ago called Children of Men, which takes place sort of in the future. And for some reason, women have stopped getting pregnant. And it's like 15 years after this happened, and society is basically falling apart. And my son was having a real hard time with this. He's like, why? And I'm like, well, if there's no kids, if there's no children, what the hell are we doing? Like, why are we working for anything? There's no one to provide for. There's no one to nurture, to keep safe. There's no investment in future generations. And he was like, I kind of see it. So it's a bit of a roundabout way to make the point that what you're doing is great stuff. And we should all be concerned with the safety and stability of young people.
But also, if you look at our history, just a very few people have changed the trajectory of our society in such a major ways. We can really deduct from it that talent is not as common as we sometimes think. We need to preserve any opportunity for the talent. We have to make sure that every kid reaches their potential.
Yeah.
Because what if that kid that doesn't reach their potential is the guy that would have cured cancer, or the girl that would have solved the nuclear fusion or something like
warp drive,
yeah, whatever. The thing is, and who has that potential? We don't know.
I don't. I know who doesn't have it.
Well, with us, it's pretty clear. Yeah, but what I mean, when you look at a kid, you don't know what's inside. So it is basically it's worth it, to make sure that all of them reach their highest potential, and that's how we move forward. That's how we advance.
Well, Ilya, thank you for coming on and chatting about it. It's a very interesting and a very important discussion to have. Where can people find out more about your organization? And
on our website or through our social media. If you just search in Google Childline Thailand, will come up. Childlinethailand.org. And can you make donations onto the website as well? Yes, there is donations.
Donations, great. I urge everyone to do that if they can. Ilya, again, thank you so much. And I hope to see you around town, bright and happy.
Anytime.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dude, we got to stop having guests on that make me feel guilty.
Our guests are too good. We've got to stop having nice people on. We got to get some jerks on to make us gloat.
Correct. Yeah, so we need some really selfish, like profit-minded, like greedy millionaires on the show. That's what we need.
Right. Yeah, people like Ilya are truly selfless. Like they're really, really dedicated to helping people, and not just helping people, but helping the most disadvantaged people and the people that often get taken advantage of the most, which is who needs help the most.
For sure. Now, he's not the first person we've had on who works in the NGO sector for our charities, but he's a good example of the possibilities out there. So listeners out there, expats, if you ever want to do any kind of volunteer work, just check our back shows. We've had plenty of people on who do various different types of NGO work. So there's plenty of organizations out there you could volunteer for.
Yeah, and it's actually some interesting research that I found when looking into more information about this topic. I didn't know, but Thailand was the first Asian country to ratify the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. So
interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. So there's definitely a set of rules and regulations and practices out there that are supposed to keep children safe, and people like Ilya are doing their best to make sure that it happens. So good on him, and thank you very much, Ilya, for coming on and shedding some light on this really important issue. And we hope that next year and the years after that look better and better for you and your job.
For sure. Thanks, Ilya.
Right on. All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we then discuss to decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with no matter how we feel about it. This week, it's my turn to ask you something, Ed.
All right, hit me, man.
So you are like me. You love Thai food and all of its varieties and glory and spicy.
Almost all, but yes.
Spicy wonder, yeah. Now, I got a message from one of our friends, Scott, the other day, and he said how he was happy that his wife cooked him up a big bowl of tom kha gai, the coconut, sour coconut chicken soup.
Sure.
And I want to know what you think about this soup, because the soup is awesome. But what do you think about all the detritus at the bottom? Now, for those that don't know, this soup is amazing. It's similar to Tom Yum Goong, but it's a completely different flavor. And the flavors are so complex, but those complex flavors come from a variety of ingredients, which are often left chopped up and smooshed and squished at the bottom of the soup.
Correct.
And
this is
I don't like it. What's your thoughts?
This is a great question, because this is a good early Bangkok lesson. I specifically remember with, tom kha is a great example, but it's true for some other stuff too. To some extent, it's true for tom yum and some other dishes. It's a little bit unusual in the West to put ingredients in that are not supposed to be eaten. So if you cook something with a bay leaf, you typically take that out before you serve, I believe. Like if you cook a soup with a bay leaf, like I remember my mom, taking it out. Whereas in Thailand, there's again, it does depend on the dish. There can be a fair amount of inedible ingredients. So this is I remember this in early Thai lesson where I was biting down on galangal and I thought I was supposed to eat it, or lemongrass. Those are the two most common. But there's other stuff too. So okay, yeah, I don't know how you could like it. But I guess I've learned to live with it. I mean, you're right. It's hard to say you like it, but I'm not sure I would want them to take it out. But to me, I've adapted to it as being part of Thai food. But it's a warning. It's almost like Thai food should come with a warning that you're not actually supposed to eat everything that's on your plate or in the soup. You have to know what is meant to be,
right?
What's digestible or what's chewable.
Presentation is a big part of it. Yeah, it was my first experience too. I bit down hard on a big chunk of lemongrass, which is not pleasant.
Yeah,
and I kind of wish they would remove it. I would really appreciate it if I got a big cauldron of tom kha gai and it had been
and everything was edible. Everything in there was edible.
Yeah, I want to be able to stick a straw in that bowl like I do a coconut and just suck up that good soup. To me, it's sort of like when you order like a Coke or something and it's 90% ice cubes.
No, I mean it's a great question. It's a good point, and I do often feel weird when I'm quote unquote done eating and then the bowl is a third full of stuff.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's like a third full of stuff that you can't eat or you're not supposed to eat, and I'm picking around it and trying to figure out what's edible and what's not.
You're getting like a third of a little tiny spoon of liquid. You're like, yeah.
Or there'll be other herbs and spices in there you can eat. So it's not, and in my case, back in the day it would be chicken or shrimp. Now, when I ordered it's almost always tofu. But there's other stuff, and there'll be other edible vegetables in there, like tomato. There'll be tomato in there.
Yeah, there's little onions that are really good.
Yeah, but then there's just a fair amount, more than you would think, stuff that you're really not supposed to eat.
Yeah. So I'm a live with, just because I'm certainly not going to stop eating the
right.
But I think it's wholly unnecessary, and I think if it does add any more flavor while it's sitting on the table, I think it's probably negligible. I say take it out.
I see. I'm going to live with it. I've managed to adapt to it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, so as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Eric Anderson for lending us his support at the show shout-out level. Greg, what did you find out about Eric?
Well, Eric is a lovely guy, and I met him for lunch actually recently. We went to our favorite restaurant, one of our favorite restaurants, Beirut, and we both ordered the exact same thing. Actually, it was very cute of us. We both ordered a Greek salad, which is really, really good at that restaurant.
Yep.
I could eat that every day for the rest of my life. No problem. And Eric's a really, really nice guy. He wrote us a friendly email and he says, I'm happy to support you guys, as you already know. Like you, I've been in the land of smiles for 20 plus years.
Nice.
And we talked about this on the bonus show a little bit about the difficulties of moving to the countryside and or retiring. But this is what Eric said. He said, I came here to retire, got bored within 4 weeks, and found myself teaching English.
There you go.
A major challenge due to my Scottish accent.
I see. Well, I need help with the Scottish accent.
Wasn't it a few years ago it came out that like Irish people weren't considered native speakers of English in Thailand? I think by like
is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty fun.
Anyway, long story short, which I won't bore you with, but decided to open my own school and have survived floods, red and yellow shirts, various coups, bombings, and I'm still here. Oh yes, and COVID. I'm 76 years young, teach every day, travel around Bangkok on my motorbike, and love every minute of it except when it's raining. So that's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah. And he says, my favorite place is Hua Hin, and I go there whenever possible. I've learned more English grammar than I knew existed. And that led me into something because when Eric and I sat down for lunch, he taught me some Scottish grammar. And I want to see, Ed, if you know this word.
Oh, this is frightening.
What would you say if I said, do you mind if I drop by out with your normal working hours?
Out with? That's
with.
in English? That's in the English language?
It's in the Scottish language. But
the Scottish language. Out with. I mean, I'm just going to guess it's outside of, but yeah, in the U.S., we don't say out with.
Yeah, that's what it means. It means outside of or beyond. So do you mind if I drop by out with your normal working hours?
Well, I do have a Scottish friend, so maybe I'll drop an out with in the conversation and see if she blinks.
Yeah, and it's funny. It led me to a kind of a Twitter black hole. There's actually several Twitter accounts that are specifically focused on sharing Scottish words that don't exist anywhere else.
Oh, cool.
And it's funny because the replies are always Scottish people going, what are you talking about? What do you mean no one else uses this word? Are you crazy? But yeah,
funny.
So there we go. Eric turned us on to some new vocabulary we can throw into random conversations and confuse people who aren't Scottish. But yeah, thanks for your support, Eric. We really appreciate it. And more power to you teaching English and riding around in the rain on your motorbike.
For sure. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
A final thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, baby. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that will feature on the show. You can hit me up on threads at BKKGreg. Thank you for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there. Breathe shallow if the air is bad. See you back here next week.
For sure.